Ladies and gentlemen, this is Sideline Warning, the show where sports takes are sure to go way too far out into the field. And here to recap this week's biggest and best sports stories are your hosts, Adam Russell, Dave Adams, and Ben Foster.
Hey, welcome back into Sideline Warning, everybody. This is week 21. Once again, you have your host, Dave Adams, and let me bring in the other guys all the way from Birmingham. Hopefully he's in Birmingham this week. Ben, you made it back from Tuscaloosa County?
Yes, I am coming in from Birmingham in my new apartment. So recording from the new podcast studio.
Oh, so the palatial podcast studio?
Yes, something like that.
Okay. So all the way from the House of Mouse-ish, I guess. You're not really Kissimmee or Lake Buena Vista, Adam?
It's St. Cloud, thank you.
Okay, St. Cloud. That's like what, the Northport to Orlando?
We'll go with that, sure.
Okay. So we've got a fun show this week. We got basically, I think this is the first show where we're not even going to touch Alabama. We're an Alabama fan podcast, but we're kind of in that Alabama lull. There's not much to talk about. A-Day is in a week and a half. But we got some Major League Baseball to talk about. And then after the break, there's a topic that if you're part of the fan group, you saw a little taste. We're going to debate, is wrestling a sport? Not Greco-Roman wrestling. Is professional wrestling a sport?
You mean the wrestling that's not a sport? We're going to debate whether or not it's a sport.
With that comment, you understand where Ben is going to lie. But let's wait and let's get into some baseball. Now, I understand that the season just started, but at the end of this season, probably one of the biggest names to hit the free agent market will become a free agent. And that is one, Bryce Harper, who I think is the best outfield in Major League Baseball. An article came out, I guess, what was this, a couple days ago, saying, 5 days ago, on April 5th, saying that there is a outside shot and that it actually makes sense that Bryce Harper could end up with the Atlanta Braves. What's y'all's take on that?
Absolutely not.
He took the words right out of my mouth.
Absolutely not. Why is that? Because, the Braves have money, and they've got a young base. If you want to win for years down the road, why not look at Atlanta? If Liberty Mutual decides to give Atlanta some money to go out and get a free agent, why not
Liberty Media,
I'm sorry. Why not throw $900 million in an 11-year contract, or $300 million in an 11-year contract to Bryce Harper?
Because you don't go get the most hated player in baseball and make him part of your team.
Why not? John Schuerholz almost did it in 1993.
Almost, but didn't. You just don't go get the guy from your rival and bring him to your team, even if it would make your team better. And I'm not sure that it would make the Braves better. Is he the best hitter in baseball? Yes. If he's not, he's the second best. We've had that discussion before. It's either, who do you get, him or Mike Trout? But you don't bring in Bryce Harper to make your team better because he's a jerk. You just don't add jerks to your team. It throws off team chemistry, even if they're really good.
Well, David, let me ask you this. What hole are you plugging with Bryce Harper if you're Braves leadership?
You're plugging every hole. He's a five-tool player. The Braves have no power right now. There's your power. The Braves have okay outfielders. There's your amazing outfielder. The Braves have no speed. There's your speed. I'm not talking about leadership. Leadership is Freddie Freeman.
The Braves have no speed.
No, Ender Inciarte. I know that's who you're going to say. Ender Inciarte is not a fast player. He shouldn't be hitting leadoff.
Inciarte is pretty fast. So's Ozzie Albies. Dansby Swanson's not slow.
I just don't think it fits with the whole story we've been, and I'm going to say it this way, we've been fed for the last couple of years, that we're going to completely remake the organization, start from the farm system and run the players through the system and win that way. doesn't make sense to me for that to be the quote unquote methodology for several years, just to turn around now and dump all of our money on one guy when we supposedly have the best farm system in all of baseball that should be pumping the Bryce Harpers for the next 5 to 10 years into the Braves roster.
But that's the thing. That's the thing. When the Braves started this retooling, refarming of the farm system, it was not Alex Anthopoulos at the helm as a general manager. Now we have a new general manager as Alex Anthopoulos, and he went out and spent when he was a general manager over at in Toronto. So why not come with a new theology?
I just think I hold with the point it sounds like Ben might be making of one person does not a team make, and I think it's a lot to take to bring a guy in that I think gets you good in one position in one facet of the game. Yeah, he's a 5-tool player, but there's enough of a foundation there where I think we'll have enough of moderate talent players coming through where I would rather develop those and get them through the system than go after one guy, personally.
The Braves are going to have bats.
Yeah, I don't think, and we already do. I mean, look at the runs we've generated until this last couple of games against the Nationals. But I think when you throw the Nationals themselves into the mix, where he's already at home, he's talked about how much he likes playing there. But you put the Braves up against the Dodgers, you put them up against, some of the other teams that might seem like they're up there. And it seems like that there are other teams that are restructuring their whole model, like the Dodgers, who are changing their whole payroll to get the tax rate set in a spot that puts them in a position to take a player like this at the end of the year. I don't know that you can compete against that. He's closer to home. And the Dodgers, they wrote a whole book about how they're the best team money can buy. And this feels more like their MO than the Braves.
It does, but this also doesn't. This isn't your granddad's Braves. I mean, this is a new regime in charge of the Braves. So I don't know.
But just because there's new guys doesn't mean they're going to completely redo everything. You don't.
This sure feels like my granddad's Braves.
There is so much up and coming talent. Are you going to trade that away? Are you going to?
It's not a trade. Okay. So name the talent that's coming into right field. I know we got Acuna, but he's in left field.
You've got Acuna, who's going to be a critical part of your outfield. And I'm not saying that Bryce Harper couldn't play right field for the Braves. I'm just saying I don't think you spend that money there because I think you've got other guys that have shown some promise as hitters that can be added to the lineup. You've got power hitters like Freddie Freeman. So why not spend the money elsewhere on starting pitching? I would rather have the Braves spend money on starting pitching because the rotation and the 5-man rotation needs help. And Julio, you've said it before, Dave, Julio Teheran's not a number 1 pitcher. He's probably a number 2 or number 3 at best. The Braves have got to go find a number 1 starter. I would much rather see them spend money on a number 1 starter than on Bryce Harper.
But who's coming out? I mean, there's not a number 1 starter the Braves can go get that would be this home run hire. Clayton Kershaw is a free agent, I believe, at the end of the year. But he's, 36? I don't want to spend the money on that.
Kershaw's 31.
That's old for pitchers. I'm just saying.
Kershaw's going to be pitching till he's 40.
I'm not touching that one.
You look at how these young guys are on like 4, 5, 6-year contracts. That's all you need from Kershaw. Go get somebody like Kershaw for 4 or 5 years. That'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I'd rather see it spent on the pitching. I mean, I always gave Teheran the benefit of the doubt when he didn't get the run support, but it seems more like this year we're going to have the run support. He still looks like a head case. He can't get in his own in a rhythm,
David Price could opt out of his contract with the Red Sox.
No,
yes,
go
absolutely.
Go get him for just 3 or 4 years. Just 3 or he's
Absolutely.
33. He's older than Kershaw. Just get him for 3 or 4 years, just to kind of like bide the time until you can get somebody else that could be the number 1 guy in the rotation. Then go
David
spend some money
Price
on
has
that.
not been the same player since he left Tampa Bay.
Really?
He is not the dominant pitcher that he once was. I do not want him as a number 1 starter.
Go get David Price. Hey, you know who else? We're not talking starters now. You know who's going to be a free agent? Craig Kimbrell. Let's bring him back to Atlanta.
Hey, I like that.
Let's spend the money on that and shore up the bullpen instead of having to bring other guys out there in the 9th inning that aren't ready to go.
Why? You have Craig Kimbrell. They don't use him. When the Braves had Craig Kimbrell, They didn't use him. I'm looking at you, Freddie Gonzalez, in the 8th inning of the Dodgers and Braves game in the wild card.
But would you say that there were different people running the Braves in?
I would.
Dave, it's a different regime.
I know, and I'm so glad Freddie Gonzalez is gone.
Hey, you know, somewhere the Braves could really shore things up would be third base. There's a couple of free agents. If you want to spend on bats, go get Manny Machado. Get him away from the Orioles.
He's a shortstop now.
No, he's not.
He's playing shortstop.
Put him at third. Put him at third.
You heard of a kid named Rio Ruiz. He is coming up to play third in the farm system for the Braves. Third is going to be just fine next year.
I've seen Ruiz play, but the Braves have got a lot of outfield talent. It's not going to be just Acuna out there. Yeah. I think the Braves would do better to make sure they keep Inciarte instead of trading him away, and go find you can find a good right fielder, or take one of these guys that's been playing well, like Preston Tucker, and put them over in right field.
Yeah. Well, I say, and I don't want to be the guy that flip-flops all the way through a conversation like this, but I can make a case, Dave. I could sit on your side of the fence because, I mean, if you look at the best prospects we got coming up, you know, out of the top 100, you know, we have mostly pitchers and a third baseman. So even the things that we've talked about spending money on, we do have the pipeline there to feed that talent over the next few years. So why not play some big market baseball, step up and go all in on a big-time player?
Right.
I mean, you could make that case, but what are you stuck with? What's the locker room feel going to be with a guy like that? How are the fans going to react? You know, there's all of those things too. Because I'd rather see a guy come up from the farm system that worked his way through the organization actually make an impact. But
look, I'm going to use a football reference here, and anybody who listens to this podcast who knows me personally knows that I hate Peyton Manning with a bloody passion. I hate Peyton Manning. But if he had signed with the Tennessee Titans, I would have worn an 18 jersey and been proud of it. I hate Bryce Harper right now as a player because of who he plays for. But if he puts that script A on his head and there's that script A on his chest, I will be the biggest Bryce Harper fan, and I will be the first in line to buy that jersey. And I think that 90% of Atlanta Braves fans will be the same way.
Ugh.
Mm. I think you found 2 of the 10%.
Yeah, you've got us right here because I'm that person that always was like, well, what would shake my Braves fandom? What would cause me to not be a Braves fan? What if they start losing and they're not as good as the team of the 90s? Okay, well, we've been through that, and I'm still pulling for the Braves. So that didn't shake me. Bryce Harper would give me a lot of pause about continuing to be a Braves fan. And you can make some comparison to Peyton Manning. You know, what did Peyton Manning do? When he was in college, he led the band in Bryant-Denny Stadium.
That's actually Legion Field.
Or in Legion Field, playing Rocky Top. And, you know, guess what? He's like 21. And then he outgrew it, and he quit being a jerk, and he started making entertaining commercials. He showed us sense of humor. Bryce Harper's 26. He's still a jerk. That's the difference between Peyton Manning and Bryce Harper. One grew out of it, and one still hasn't.
Yeah, I would still root for him. I can never shake that. But the Angels, man, are sitting right in the back seat with Ohtani and Mike Trout, and you know, who do you put most of your energy into? It wouldn't take much if Bryce Harper was on the roster for me to wear more of an Angels hat around town than a Braves hat.
No, my Braves hat would be firmly placed on my head most of the time because I'd be proud to say we had Bryce Harper. But let's break down the rest of this. You know, what some other teams that Bryce Harper could go to. This article lists some odds here. The number one team with a 3-1 odd is, I think you alluded to it, Adam, the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Yep.
What they'd have to do is they'd have to move Yasiel Puig because that's Puig's spot where Harper plays, and I don't think anybody would take Puig off their hands. So I don't know.
I don't see. I mean, I'll just say I don't see that as a blocker for the Dodgers. You know, I mean, I think they would do what it takes. It seems like they've done all the back end stuff from a business standpoint to make it work in their advantage to have this opportunity, and they've just been pouring money at people. So I think it fits. But
Yeah. The next one is kind of an obvious as well. As 7-2 odds is staying home with the Washington Nationals. If anything happens, I say this is one of the teams he stays with. I don't see him moving much, really. Next would be the Philadelphia Phillies, which I would hate even more than him staying with the Nationals at a 5-1 odd. And it seems like the Phillies already have a couple of Scott Boras clients on their team. So I think that Jake Arrieta's signing at the beginning of this season was maybe to lay that pipeline to get Scott Boras into Philadelphia.
I don't know if I buy that, but I could see him playing for the Phillies, and I could see my hatred for the Phillies rising.
Oh, exactly. Next on the list at an 8-1 odd is the San Francisco Giants. So going to California again. I could see that happening. That's not my favorite one. They're getting a little older. So we'll see. The next
with the Giants, I had a long history of hating the Giants because of Barry Bonds, and so if Bryce Harper went there, I would just hate the Giants again. When after Barry Bonds left and they started winning World Series, I was like, hey, this is a respectable franchise. And if Bryce Harper went to the Giants, I could just renew my hatred of the Giants that dates back to when the Braves were in the same division with them.
There you go. At number 5 on the list is our favorite team, the Atlanta Braves. And the only reason they say, first they have a 10-1 odd, is the Braves have openings and resources. No excuses not to go for it. I agree. But we've had a whole 10-minute conversation about that. The next is the Chicago Cubs at a 15-1 odd. Keep in mind, Bryce Harper is good friends with Chicago Cubs third baseman Chris Bryant. And Jason Hayward could opt out of his contract, leaving room for Bryce Harper.
And then the Braves could just go get Jason Hayward. I'm
sorry.
No. My gosh. I couldn't help it.
I mean, I do have a Jason Hayward jersey. I could just start wearing it again.
Oh, man.
At a 25-1 odd at number 7 on the list, before this season, I would have said this was my number 1 odds-on favorite.
Definitely.
But after all the trades and everything, the New York Yankees, I don't see this happening anymore with the outfield they've got.
It's almost like you can't put on an acquisition article without listing the Yankees.
Right. But could you just imagine this outfield, gentlemen? Aaron Judge, Bryce Harper, Giancarlo Stanton. I mean,
who plays center field? I guess Harper.
Bryce Harper.
I guess he's got the better wheels for center field.
Yeah. But just hand him the trophy. Good grief. 9-1, or at number 8 at a 50-1, Boston Red Sox. I would love to see Bryce Harper play at Fenway.
I wouldn't. The Red Sox are my American League team. It's like all you're trying to do is just get me riled up. That's what I think this is really about. Is like, let's see if we can raise Ben's blood pressure.
Yep.
Hey, most of the show y'all spend trying to get me riled up. Why can't I get you riled up every now and then?
Hey, and then this one, the article goes on to say the field. You know, there's pretty good odds that these other teams will get it, but give the field. You know where it wouldn't be a great place for Bryce Harper is Colorado.
The field. Oh my gosh.
If he just like the Rockies should, like, you put him there, you keep Arenado, you've suddenly got like a pretty good hitting team there just by the nature of being in Colorado. Just bring him to the Rockies and build your team around that.
That would be fun to see. That would be great to see.
That's how you get 70 home runs.
There you go.
Just so we're clear.
That was PEDs. Okay, well, talk about clearing cap space and doing things the right way, paying taxes, paying for things, paying for Bryce Harper. Ben, you brought an article to our attention that let's talk about. Bring it up.
So during the Braves broadcast, Chip Carey mentioned this, and you guys know how Chip Carey is. He's a great broadcaster. I love Chip Carey, but sometimes when he says stuff, I'm not 100% certain whether he's making like a really dry joke or if he's actually telling me something that happened in the world of sports. And so when he said this, I thought it was a joke, and then I Googled it only to find like a dozen articles that all confirmed it was not a joke. It just sounds like a joke. It's one of those things where you feel like, The Onion probably wrote it, but then you're like, no, reputable places are reporting this. the Miami Marlins are claiming to be based in the British Virgin Islands to avoid settlement disputes in Miami-Dade County. This is just mind-boggling. But
How?
apparently, part of the ownership team for the Jeter Marlins, as Miami-Dade County attorneys like to call them, the Jeter Marlins, the Derek Jeter ownership group, at least one person in that ownership group is actually a citizen of the British Virgin Islands. Therefore, they are able to claim that the entire ownership group is an international entity and has international citizenship, because it just takes one person to make the whole group international.
I feel like you should insert right after that.
And
So, wait.
So what that does is that gets you a change of venue. This should be a local dispute in local Miami-Dade County courtrooms, but by being an international dispute, it actually means that they get to try it in a federal court, which might be a little bit more favorable because there would be less of a bias from the local judges.
Yeah.
So are they saying that they're trying to move the team?
No.
Okay.
They're just claiming to be based in the British Virgin Islands, which is where you go to hide money.
Yep.
It's where you go to avoid paying taxes. And occasionally do good things. You can actually do good things by using a tax shelter in the British Virgin Islands, but generally it's associated with all of the sneaky, underhanded, maniacal things. so this is where they're like straight out of Central Casting as the evil villains. They sell off all the talent, they don't pay the city the taxes they're due, and then they cut and run by claiming international citizenship.
And that's my thing with this is it's like what could you, I mean, I know monetarily what you'd have to gain by not paying the county in Miami as much, but at the end of the day, you're looking the people, the government of the people that the ballpark is in and the parking garages are in, and you're saying, I'm not giving you the money that you think you're due. And that's got to be hard for these guys. Just took the team over. And one of their very first things is to look the people in the eye and say, we're going to shortchange you. But my favorite thing with this is there's a filing that Miami-Dade County put back in the court as part of this. And it says that if the sole basis of this claim is that because one of the members of a parent company of the Marlins is in the British Virgin Islands, therefore it's a foreign company, then wouldn't it follow that even if one of the members is a citizen of the United States, that you could argue the other way, that technically then it's a United States company? That's actually in the filing. So it's like public record that they're actually getting a little bit snarky back with them. And I just love it because I think this is just one of the most, I don't want to say underhanded, but it's one of the weirdest things I've ever seen someone new to a place do. And for me, it's like all of the law and where you're incorporating all that aside, it just doesn't seem like the right thing to do, to come into an area and do that. But I will say Miami and Miami-Dade should have whoever wrote this contract fired, because it does not clearly state in there what the actual formula used to determine their share should be. And that's what all of the gray area is about with this, is that because the contract doesn't say what the formula is, they're trying to say on paper it's a loss, so we don't owe you anything, or we don't owe you as much. The city and county are coming back saying, no, if you follow this formula, it actually comes out this way. And because you didn't declare it off right off the bat, you're going to get shortchanged. And that's on them for not writing a good contract. So they kind of set themselves up for this.
And a lot of this ties back to when Jeffrey Loria controlled the team, and when he sold them to the Jeter Group, he actually sold the team for $1.2 billion, but also claimed a loss.
Yeah.
We should all be so lucky.
I know, right?
But because of the contract, claiming that loss means he doesn't have to pay anything for Marlins Park, and that sticks the locals with the bill. So it's not just Jeter and his group that's kind of crooked. It's also the people that sold the team to Jeter and his group, Jeffrey Loria. And he has been crooked from the beginning because he's always been part of these weird transactions with the Marlins. He's been a part of 2, if you want to count this most recent one, he's actually been a part of 3 of the fire sales that the Marlins have had. And it's disgusting. It's not good for baseball. Yeah. And, it would not surprise me in a few years if Jeter and company didn't take the team out of Miami and really, really ruin things in Miami and leave Miami stuck with a baseball stadium they can't use.
Yeah.
Well, that brings me to another thing I wanted to talk about kind of with this. And Adam, I'm going to pose this to you since you're our resident Floridian.
Yes.
Florida is known for spring baseball. Spring training flourishes in Florida, and it flourishes in Arizona too. So why does Florida have an issue with Tampa Bay and Miami bringing attendance? I mean, why do people not show up?
And I'll tell you, it's the same thing you see when you go to two examples I'll use. One is a Braves spring training game when they're playing the Yankees. There's maybe 5 Braves fans there, and it's sold out both baselines, Yankees fans. When you go to our local Advanced A for the Braves, their affiliate here is the Kissimmee, they're Florida Fire Frogs. They play in Kissimmee at Osceola Heritage Park. And when Tim Tebow's St. Lucie Mets came to town, everybody there was a Mets fan or a Florida Gators fan. They need to get over it, but that's a whole other conversation. But there's so many transplants down here that already have a fandom. I mean, I can't tell you how many Yankees and Mets fans I know at work or Cubs because they're from Chicago. You get so many people down here from Chicago, from New York, from the Northeast that already have a team, that they go to a baseball game as a social event and not as a fan. Or if they go as a fan, it's because their team is in town. And I just don't think you can drive the type of attendance when you've got such a large transplant population. I think that's why spring baseball does so good, because you got the teams down here that are up there. But during the season, you look at some of the Miami games, and it's like there's 5 people in the whole stadium that you can see in the batter's box. That view of the batter, there's 10 people. Because there's probably 10 true Marlins fans in all of Miami. I think it has a lot to do with the population.
Well,
but I think a lot of it has to do with stuff like this. Because, and I don't want to go too long, but you look at the Marlins and the way this has been handled. I mean, they were a competing team for a while there, and now you have something like this happen, and it's kind of underhanded and shady. People just don't want the drama. Then you've got a situation like Tampa where you got a Rays team that has shown flashes where they've actually been able to compete. But the stadium's out in the middle of nowhere, and you've got to cross the Bay Bridge and go all the way on the other side to get to it.
Yeah, it's
and
the
drive
actually, isn't it?
Yeah, and the drive's just crazy. So even people from Tampa, I mean, my parents are in Lakeland, which is just a stone's throw away from Tampa, but it's still almost an hour drive to the stadium because of where it is. Right. And so it's just you get the team there, and it's great baseball when you show up, but to get there and to get out, and then you have stuff like the Marlins happen, and it just always seems to have something with it that makes it inconvenient or not really desirable. So
it's a different thing between the Marlins and the Rays, though, because in Miami, the Marlins, when they're playing good baseball, are still the 5th or 6th best thing going on in Miami. In Tampa, when the Rays are playing well, they might be the biggest thing going on.
Probably so, yeah.
And it's not like Tampa can't support teams. When the hockey team does well, the Tampa Bay Lightning, when they've made the playoffs, people show up for that. People show up for good hockey. Now that's a better location. The St. Pete Times Forum where they play, that's a better location than Tropicana Field. So that definitely plays into it. But in Miami's just not a good place for baseball because baseball's played in the summertime. And in Miami, in the summertime, there's at least 10 other things you'd rather be doing than baseball. I love baseball. There's not much I'd rather be doing than watching a baseball game. But in Miami, there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, and I think you can see, you look at the O-Rays, they used to be here in Orlando right up until the point where I moved down here in early 2000s, right? And poorly attended, didn't really have a big following. They moved them to Montgomery, Alabama, and renamed them the Biscuits. And that's one of the biggest things to do in Montgomery on most nights when they're in town. It's that same thing Ben's talking about.
Well, yeah, Orlando has multiple theme parks. Montgomery doesn't.
They do not. That is accurate.
I checked. I had to Google it, but I confirmed there are no theme parks in Montgomery.
Yeah. I grew up 10 minutes from there. They do not. I can.
So the O-Rays left your current town to move to your former town.
The year that I moved down here, they left where I moved to go to where I came from. Yes.
I didn't. I never put one and two together until just now.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's your baseball talk for the week. We're going to have a new segment coming up in the near future that I'm going to let Adam tell you about here. Adam, this is kind of your baby, so why don't you kick it off?
Yeah, man, we're actually going to call it the Blitz, and it's your opportunity to kind of set the topics. I know we come in and do some show prep and figure out what we're going to talk about, but I think the Sideline Warning fan group specifically has opened us up to letting other people bring up things that we can chat about, things that we can share our comments on Facebook. But this is your chance to really truly be part of the show. So if you've got a topic you want us to talk about, if you've got a question you want us to answer, or if you just want to take a cheap shot at one of us, that's fine too. You can actually call a Google voice number we've set up. It's 931-44-BLITZ, and record a voicemail on that line, and we'll play the voicemail on the show, and then we'll talk about your question or talk about your point, or pile on whoever the person is you take a cheap shot at, whatever the case may be. So we hope that that's something you'll do and help interact with the show and drive a little bit of what we talk about. So we're excited about it.
I have a feeling that the first person to get piled on, the name will probably start with a D.
No, I don't know who you're talking about.
Hey, I put myself out there. I don't care. That's the gimmick I play. Oh, gimmick. Speaking of gimmicks, I think we're going to talk about a sport that pertains to gimmicks when we come back from the break. When we come back from the break, Ben and I will debate whether pro wrestling can be categorized as a sport.
It won't even be much of a debate.
Okay. Well, tell you what, go have a nice Coke and a smile, and we'll see you here on Sideline Warning on the other side of this break. Hey everybody, Dave here. While we got a quick second, we'll tell you about the crossover episode that is going to happen on the next 2 episodes. You hear our voice. Tomorrow night, the guys are going to go over to the I Am Geek podcast, and we're going to record with their episode, with their show. And I think that's going to land on air sometime Thursday morning. So go check out I Am Geek. And then the next time you see a Sideline Warning podcast, it's going to be Sideline Warning with the I Am Geek folks. Now, this isn't going to be just a sports show. We're going to be doing a Disney bracket challenge. We're going to do Disney rides and attractions, not Disneyland, Disney World rides and attractions. And on their show, we're going to make out the bracket. And then we're going to put it on both of our fan groups and let y'all decide who wins, who loses, whatever. We're going to talk about it on Sideline Warning. We're going to reveal our brackets. So tune in to both I Am Geek and Sideline Warning, and you will hear something that is totally off the walls, but totally awesome. We'll see you guys back here in a second with more Sideline Warning. Welcome back into Sideline Morning. Hope y'all are all as refreshed as we are. Hope you had that nice Coke and a smile. But now it is time to talk about something that I have always loved to watch, but most people don't. It's an acquired taste, I understand. And it's not something that you normally hear talked about on sports podcasts, but it is making mainstream media. ESPN now talks about it. Sports Illustrated has a true wrestling division now. So what we're going to do now is Ben Foster doesn't watch wrestling. I think hasn't watched wrestling since WCW folded into WWE. Am I correct?
Since before WCW folded.
Okay. So Ben has gone through and found people tweeting about WrestleMania from Sunday night.
And I did not find people that I didn't know. I just happened to be looking at my feed during the Mets-Nationals game on Sunday night. So apparently WrestleMania, I didn't even know what day WrestleMania was. I thought it was next week, but I was just thumbing through Twitter while I was watching the Mets-Nats game, and I happened to realize, WrestleMania is happening at this time.
And I want to go ahead and say this. None of those tweets were from me. I was on the BLT lunch break group talking wrestling, which Adam sent me a bunch of eye roll memes. So none of these tweets are from D Adams 419. But what Ben is going to do is he is going to try to read the tweets, and by the tweet, he's going to tell me what happened in the match, and I'll tell him if he was right or wrong.
Yeah, and I don't have specific tweets. I'm just basing this off of what I've been able to piece together from what I saw, other people tweeting about. So if I saw multiple people tweeting about something, I'll say, okay, this is this is what I've got. So the first thing I want to figure out what happened. I actually took this GIF from somebody else's tweet, and I tweeted it at Dave on Sunday night. And so what I can conclude is that there was a man who was dressed like Milli Vanilli, and that man that was dressed like Milli Vanilli beat everyone he wrestled against, and he did so in like a velour tracksuit. Am I anywhere close, Dave?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Who was this person in the GIF that I tweeted at you?
So that is Shinsuke Nakamura. He is the king of strong style. He is a Japanese wrestler who came from New Japan Pro Wrestling and has since come to the big leagues of WWE. And this was a match that was made in wrestling fans' heads that we never thought we'd see. AJ Styles, who is an amazing technical wrestler, versus Shinsuke Nakamura, who is also an amazing technical wrestler. Do you care to do you know what happened in the match based on Twitter?
I understand he whooped tail. He beat a lot of people. And because somebody was tweeting about it being impressive that he did that in those like stretchy red pants he was wearing.
So he actually lost the match, so it was two good guys facing each other. In wrestling, good guy is called a baby face. Two baby faces wrestling each other. At the end of the match, Nakamura, in true Japanese fashion, grabbed the belt and knelt down to hand it to AJ Styles. But the beating everybody part came is he made a heel turn when he took his fist and hit AJ Styles where AJ Styles would make babies.
Where nobody wants to be hit.
Right, exactly. So he then became the bad guy.
So a heel turn is not a physical move. It's like a plot twist.
Basically, yeah.
Because when you say heel turn, I picture like some kind of kick.
Or somebody walk. Okay. I think of somebody like when they walk down a runway, like a runway.
Oh
model,
yeah.
When they get to the end of the runway and then they kind of spin, they turn on their heel. That's not what we're talking about, though, right?
That's not what we're talking. Okay. Heel turn is when you turn from a baby face to a heel.
Okay. So like the heel is a role somebody plays.
Right.
Like what you normally do on the podcast.
Yeah, exactly. You're the bad guy. the guy that everybody loves to hate. Just historically a good heel. Think Hollywood Hogan when the NWO, back when you were watching it. Hulk Hogan was a face, but when he put on that black, he made his heel turn, and he was a bad guy.
So why was this guy Nakamura dressed like Milli Vanilli?
That's just his character.
Okay.
He did it when he was in New Japan. He brought that into WWE.
Well, I did not see any of his fight. All I saw was the GIF of his entrance, and it looked like it was on fire. So that was pretty amazing. It was
pretty awesome. It was a very cool entrance.
Okay. So I concluded. This is something else I concluded from Twitter that I did not know where WrestleMania was. I concluded that WrestleMania was in New Orleans.
That is a correct fact.
And I also concluded because of that, all of the wrestlers were trying to make like subtle New Orleans references that were not so subtle. So
are you going to bring up the bar coming out in the Mardi Gras floats?
No, I didn't know about this. I just understood like everybody was trying to be more New Orleans than they would. And because somebody was tweeting about it, it was like somebody talking about football, and they said, this is, people trying to act like they're from New Orleans, just like a Saints game. So
Yeah, that's
so
about right.
it was
That's
like
about right.
it was like a double jab at wrestling fans and Saints fans. So there were people that were a lot of the wrestlers were trying to act like they knew what they were talking about Louisiana culture wise. So were there references to gumbo and jambalaya and red beans and rice?
I don't think there were many references to the food, except for people did talk about drinking hurricanes and the lifestyle on Bourbon Street.
Okay.
Can I share one really quick?
Sure.
I took it that there was a official of the WWE who came down and told John Cena that his car was being towed.
That's a very New Orleans thing.
Because he got the heck out of there. So I can only assume it had to be something like that.
So the build up to that was that John Cena had called out The Undertaker for like 3 to 4 weeks before that. Undertaker really only wrestles 1 to 2 matches a year now. And WrestleMania.
So this was something I figured out, that The Undertaker reappeared, and it's usually kind of unexpected when he shows up. And also apparently it takes him a very long time to come from like the entrance door all the way to the ring.
Undertaker's entrance was longer than his match with John Cena.
And basically, from what I understood, like you could have fought like 3 or 4 matches in the time it took him to get to the ring.
I wouldn't say 3 or 4 matches. It probably would have been 1 match.
How old is the Undertaker? Yeah. Was he using a walker?
50. No, he actually had a hip replacement, and he was moving actually better than he did before the hip replacement. I think he's like 52. He's getting up there in age. I think next year will be his last WrestleMania.
But what was this entrance that took so long? Was he walking? Did they roll him out in like a box? Like
he was walking. So imagine the ring was at the 50-yard line, and the entrance ramp started at the back of the end zone.
So it's like when they said, "Ladies and gentlemen, the Alabama Crimson Tide," and they all walked. But
right, exactly.
Okay,
exactly.
Okay.
So
like if Joe Namath came out of the tunnel.
Yes,
okay,
Adam.
got it.
Yes.
Okay.
Next, Ben.
Something else I figured out was that somewhere along the way, WrestleMania turned into the Hunger Games, and there was going to be like a pretty normal tag team fight, and then a little girl raised her hands and said, "I volunteer as tribute. I volunteer as tribute," just like the Hunger Games. And this 10-year-old child was selected to fight in the tag team match. Did this happen?
Unfortunately, yes. This is when WrestleMania took a weird turn for me.
Again, this is one of those things that like you read on Twitter and you're like, surely they're joking. Surely that's not actually happening in this pay-per-view event. But that did happen.
Let me blow your mind. That's actually a 10-year-old little boy.
Okay, well,
right. His name is Nicholas, and everybody has since found out that it wasn't a random kid. That is actually the 10-year-old of one of the refs for WWE. So he was.
This whole thing was scripted?
It's real to me, dang it. Okay, next one, Ben.
But hang on, wait. I have to know. So there's not like a farm system for wrestling where like this 10-year-old kid is one of the top 100 prospects.
There actually is a farm system, but it wasn't that. And actually, that farm system is very close to your neck of the woods. They record at Full Sail University.
Oh, okay.
So, and that's called NXT, and they have the WWE Performance Center.
Okay, here's one I figured out just from watching a GIF that somebody tweeted. A guy basically jumped like the whole like width of the ring from one turnbuckle to the next to stomp on a guy's face. Did that happen?
So that guy that jumped that, do you care to guess who that is?
No clue.
That's Shane McMahon, Vince McMahon's son.
Well, how about that?
He's actually a very, very good wrestler. And he knows he's not going to get the company. That is actually Stephanie and Stephanie's husband, Paul Levesque, who better known as Triple H.
He's going to get the company.
Triple H is going to take over the company when Vince retires. Yes.
Never would have guessed that.
Right?
All right. So there's really only one other big thing I figured out, and that is that UFC fighter Ronda Rousey has now joined professional wrestling, and that's going to be kind of where she stays.
And she had the match of the night. Unfortunately, I hate it because I thought this was just going to be a throwaway match. That was the best in-ring performance match. It was Ronda Rousey, who is a pure athlete from UFC, and Kurt Angle, who is a gold medalist, against Triple H and Stephanie McMahon. So there you go. And Ronda won with the armbar on Stephanie McMahon.
I think those are all the things I figured out.
So the armbar is a move.
Yes, it is.
That's not a plot device.
No, the armbar is a move. You can watch any UFC fight, and most people use it.
Okay.
So now there has been jabs made at me, and jabs made at me on the Facebook fan group. What we're going to do now is Ben and I are going to debate, or I think we're going to steal an ESPN thing and kind of the final verdict. Adam, I guess you're going to play the part of Reese Davis.
Fantastic.
Ben, you can play the part of the raving lunatic, Lou Holtz.
You just have to talk like him. That's all I ask.
I'd be very happy to do this part like Lou Holtz.
You sound
He already
like
wins.
That's something I've been waiting to do for a very long time.
Okay, enough of that. And I'll play Mark May. So, Ben, the floor is yours, sir.
Very simple. Professional wrestling, world wrestling entertainment, as we know it, is not a sport, because a sport requires not just athletic skill, but requires actual competition that is not scripted and is a athletic competition where the skill is applied for the purpose of gaining points or gaining some sort of score that proves who the superior athlete is, and is therefore not scripted. That's it. Simple definition. And
Okay,
that's why WWE is not a sport.
Well, let me read to you. You want to talk about definition? I want to thank our good judge, Adam Russell, for posting this. Let me find the actual definition here.
I have it, Dave, if you'd like me to read it.
Yeah, go ahead and read it, although I'm pulling it up from Merriam-Webster myself right now.
And this is objective. I'm purely throwing it out there as the definition of sport, since that's what we're talking about, is an activity involving physical exertion and skill in which an individual or team competes against another or others for entertainment.
An activity involving skill or physical exertion for entertainment. I'm sorry, but isn't that exactly what wrestling is, an entertainment value? And then I'm also going to throw this out there. It is, yes, it's scripted, but it is a very athletically scripted sporting event. Would you say that gymnastics is a sport, Ben?
Yeah, gymnastics is a sport. They keep score.
Would you say that cheerleading is a sport, Ben?
Cheerleading during a basketball game, not a sport. Cheerleading, like these UFC competitions, like these competitions where they actually take teams of cheerleaders to compete against other schools, yeah, I'll say that's a sport.
Would you say that dance is a sport?
Dave, according to your definition, I think you could say So You Think You Can Dance, the TV show, is a sport.
Okay, sure, I agree.
I don't agree. That's
okay.
absolutely absurd.
So here's the thing. It is a choreographed sporting event for entertainment. Do I think that these guys consider themselves athletes? Yes, I do. Are they athletes? Yes, because they can probably do exactly what a football player, basketball player, baseball player can do, because Bill Goldberg played football and then he moved into wrestling. You can't, but then there are these real football players who have tried to come into wrestling. Ben, you posted pictures of 2 basketball players in the Facebook fan group that were horrible at wrestling, but they were good at their sport.
Yeah, they're not good actors.
Well, it's an entertainment purpose, entertainment value. Yes, it is a male soap opera with sports.
So you brought this up, and I don't mean for the judge to, I'll throw this point out there, something like NASCAR, Dave.
Yeah.
You asked me that question. How would you argue that?
NASCAR is a sport because it is competing against each other. And you have to have knowledge of the car and your field of knowledge. You have to know how to do it to compete.
So it's a knowledge sport?
It is a knowledge sport. Well, think about it. Can you sit in a car for 5 hours without having to go to the bathroom or pee on yourself and race at 200 miles an hour around a circle?
It's an endurance game. And also, I think just the strength required to steer a car in traffic at 200 miles per hour is
power steering
is an amazing physical exertion. So,
and it may be only for like 15 seconds, but I'd say some of the biggest athletes on the track are actually in the pit crew.
So
I totally agree with that.
While
there's actually former wrestlers who are in the pit crew.
I'm inclined to say that motorsports are not a sport, but I do think it requires a little bit of athletic skill and definitely physical endurance. And so I would say motorsports are a sport before I'd say professional wrestling is.
So do you tell me that? So wait. You just said that you think that NASCAR requires physical endurance and skill. Do you tell me that look up somebody called the Young Bucks? They're a tag team who do high flying. They basically jump 10 feet in the air off of a ladder and do flips and everything.
I'm worried what this Google search is going to yield.
No, you're telling me that the Young Bucks, Matt and Nick Jackson, are not athletes?
I'm not saying they're not athletes. They actually
Adam Page. The Hangman Adam Page does the same thing. He's 6'6" and does flippy doos in the air off ropes.
I'm not saying they're not in shape, but there's plenty of people that are in shape that don't play professional sports.
But wait, flippy do, that's a thing they do. That's not a plot device, right?
They flips off ladders and it's called a shooting star press. It's an awesome move.
So a flippy do is like a heel turn?
No, it's not. It's like an arm bar.
Oh, okay.
Shut up.
So let me go to your point you just made, Ben. I was going to ask you guys this. I saw two things out on the fan group of the fat slob rule and the cigarette rule. That if a fat slob can do it, it's not a sport. And if smoking a cigarette that would not hinder you from performing the task, it's not a sport. Do you guys subscribe to either of those?
So that takes golf out of there because there's plenty of people that smoke on a golf course. And
it takes curling out.
I point to Exhibit A, Jared Lorenzen, to say that football is not a sport.
I thought you were going to say John Daly.
Well, so you guys do not subscribe to that.
So if you want to take something like that, that's a fun way to joke about it. But if you want to take something like that and really apply it, you can find somebody fat that has played most sports. You can also find somebody that smokes that has played most sports. The Jay Cutler cigarette meme is one of my favorite sports memes of all time. So football is not a sport anymore.
So we throw those out. Got it.
Yeah. So I got to throw those out. But now this tag team, the Young Bucks, they literally look like they look much more Duck Dynasty than they look NFL.
They're actually from California. Thank you very much.
Well, Rancho
Cucamonga, California.
Well, Rancho Cucaducca, because they look like they are Duck Dynasty guys, and
they don't even have beards.
But they look like they would not hesitate to go hunting with the Duck Dynasty guys. Which I'm not knocking. I'm just saying the Young Bucks, professional wrestlers, are not playing a sport. They may be athletic guys, but it's not a sport.
Okay. I will agree to disagree on this because I think that if you're going to say gymnastics, which is a choreographed event, is a sport. If you're going to say the dance is a choreographed event, is a sport. You have to say that wrestling is a sport.
I'm not saying choreography disqualifies pro wrestling. I'm saying acting does. There's not fake sparring in gymnastics.
So ice dancing would be a sport then.
Oh yeah, definitely. Figure skating and ice dancing, definitely sports.
Got it.
They're keeping score. There is a clear winner, and you don't have people that know in advance that they're going to tank.
Well, I will say this. You say that not in advance. A match that actually happened at WrestleMania. It just came out today that it was changed. The outcome of the match was changed in the very middle of the match. So things happen in the middle of the match.
Okay,
How do they
then
do
that
that?
one particular match was a sport. The rest of WrestleMania was not.
How do they do that? The referee has an earpiece.
And with that sentence, I think I'm ready to make a judgment.
I will say this. It is a fun pastime to do. I've watched wrestling my entire life. My parents hate it. But I have gotten into wrestling even more in the past probably year. WWE has actually lost its luster. The real wrestling, if you want to go on, that's not really just about all the story. Go look at Ring of Honor. Go look at New Japan Pro Wrestling. It is all about the wrestling over there. So there are pockets where it can be just all about the entertainment value, but then there's probably about 50% of wrestling is about a sport event, but some of it is for the entertainment value of it.
Would anybody like to make any final arguments? I think, Dave, it sounds like you might be ceding a little bit. I will give my final judgment. I will give my final judgment and say that because the key word that I key in on is not entertainment or activity or physical exertion or skill, it's the word compete. And the definition of compete is strive to gain or win something by defeating or establishing superiority over others who are trying to do the same. So I have to say that I would side with Ben and Dave's most recent comment where it sounded like it's calling it a form of entertainment, but it's the fixed outcome, and it's whether or not it's changed midstream through an earpiece. That's why it's not a sport. But that doesn't mean that people can't love it, doggone.
Exactly. It can be a fun thing to watch, and it's a fun thing to debate. It really is. Although Adam sends me text messages during when he sees my posts, it's like you're talking Greek, man.
You were NXT. You were using all these 3-letter abbreviations with Logan the other day, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what you're saying.
We got to get Ben in the BLT group so he can understand what you and I are talking about sometimes.
Oh, there's another acronym. Hold on.
BLT. Yeah, it's a podcast. Come on.
Yeah, that one we've got.
We've got that one down.
All right, so there's our fun little debate. I think that's going to be the last time y'all hear me talk about wrestling on this podcast. But listen tomorrow to I Am Geek. Ryan's a big wrestling fan. I think we're going to make the guys listen to us talk about WrestleMania for a little bit before we do our Disney podcast, our Disney bracket.
You put something Disney on the backside of it, I can handle it for a little while. It's okay.
You know, there's a rumor that Disney was looking at buying WWE.
Okay.
Dave, if there was a wrestling theme park, how many times a year would you go?
There's 365 days in a year? It would probably be in Connecticut because that's where Vince's headquarters is.
He's already planning it out in his head like Roller Coaster Tycoon.
A lot of the wrestlers live in Florida. It would probably make more sense to have it in Florida.
Yeah, a lot of them are actually based in Orlando.
So it's all coming together.
There we go. Hey, I love Orlando. Y'all know that. So
yeah, there you go.
All right, so there's our wrestling talk for today. We're going to do a little bit different on the picks. So, Ben, go ahead and bring us the picks.
All right, it's time to pick a few things. I couldn't let the show get by without us picking at least something baseball related. And so for years and years, a great marker at the beginning of the season of who one of the best teams is and how well a team is going to do on the season is what team is the first to 20 wins. So, guys, I want to see, we've got some teams that are at 8 wins, 9 wins on the season. We're basically halfway there. I wanted to see if you guys could go ahead and predict who would be the first team to 20 wins in each league. So,
go ahead, Adam.
So we'll go ahead and start off with the. Go ahead and give me your pick for the American League and the National League.
Yeah, I'll say for the American League, I would say the Astros. Because the Red Sox, they look good, but some of that was on the road against the Rays. I think the Astros have had a little bit more they've had to deal with, but that'd be my pick for the AL. For the NL, I'd actually pick the Mets, because even on the road against the Nationals, they were showing up pretty good there. So I'd say the Stros and the Mets.
Dave, who you got?
Yep, I've got the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim.
Oh, my man.
Yeah, and for my American League team, and then for my National League team, I'm going to do the Arizona Diamondbacks.
All
'Cause
right.
I think the D-backs have come out pretty strong, and they're not afraid to buck up against the Cardinals.
There you
Have
go.
bench clearing brawls.
There you go. For my picks, first to 20 wins in the American League, I'm going to go with the Boston Red Sox. I think they're playing really good baseball right now. They're actually on a 9-game winning streak, and will probably keep that going. It would be interesting to see how far they could keep that going. But I'll take the Red Sox there in the American League. In the National League, I am very tempted to pick the Pittsburgh Pirates, who are playing surprisingly good baseball. But instead, I'm going to side with Adam and pick the New York Mets. I think the Mets, for some inexplicable reason, are doing really well right now. I think they're going to continue, and they will be one of the first teams to 20 wins in the National League.
Hey,
So I
curse on
can't believe
both
we're
of you.
saying that. I can't believe we're saying that. I mean, I never would have thought, but
Hey,
Yeah.
curse on both of you. I hate
Yep.
the Mets.
One of the teams that I would have said was least likely to get to 20 wins quickly. So that's our baseball pick, and then a little thing called the Stanley Cup playoffs are starting. The NHL playoffs are here, and so we're going to pick the whole bracket.
The whole bracket.
The whole bracket.
Okay. All right. And Adam, you just started a bracket pick'em group, didn't you?
I did. Yeah, it's actually out on the NHL website. I think we're troubleshooting some things.
The
Put it
NHL
nicely.
the NHL website reminds you why the NHL is fourth among the big four leagues.
Yeah, I think they were focused more on making sure that you knew it was presented by Jägermeister than actually being able to pick a bracket. But
I still
That
thought it was presented by the Milwaukee Bucks after I saw the logo.
so yeah, the link's out there on the fan group. And I think it works. We're trying to make sure it does, but we'll get it sorted out so that everybody can get their picks in.
If you would like to get in the group and can't, be sure to call the Sideline warning line, and we will respond to your voicemail shortly. That phone number again, Adam, is
931-44 Blitz. Your call is very important to us.
Please
exactly.
hold. We will be with you.
Just leave us a voicemail there, ranting about that, and we'll get back to you when we feel like it. Adam, are you gonna be in control of the bracket, or do you want me to just handle it?
You go ahead.
Okay. We will pick the first round of the Eastern and Western conferences of the NHL. So first off, we've got Nashville, the Nashville Predators versus the Colorado Avalanche. Who do you guys like there?
Go ahead, Dave.
So this is
Because we all know.
Yeah, well, this is a matchup of my, two favorite teams. In the early '90s, I was an Avalanche fan because that was the cool thing to do. But now that Nashville's gotten big and I'm close here to Nashville, I'm loving the Preds. So teenage Dave is going to hate what I say here, but I think Nashville's going to take this one pretty easily.
Yeah, I'd go along with that. I got Nashville moving on to the second round.
I too will take the Preds. They're playing great hockey right now, and it's also who I'm pulling for. All right, then the Winnipeg Jets versus the Minnesota Wild. Who do you guys have there? The Winnipeg Jets are the former Atlanta Thrashers.
Yeah, I'm actually going to take a mild upset here. I'm going to go with the 3 seed and go with Minnesota winning this.
My knowledge of hockey is so extensive that the rule that I used to pick this one is I never pick for a team whose team name is an adjective. And so I've got the Jets. Moving on.
I am tempted to pick the Jets, but my hatred of them leaving Atlanta leads for me to pick to the Minnesota Wild. So that's who I've got there, the Wild going there. And then we've got the Las Vegas Golden Knights taking on the LA Kings. Will the Knights trump the Kings?
So this is a cool story. The Knights are an actual expansion team. None of these guys played together last year. They're now the 1 seed going into this playoff. I love the Vegas Knights in this, and I'm going to pick them on this one.
Yeah, I've got it too. I've got the Knights moving on, and I can't wait for UCF to claim that they've actually won the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Oh, gosh. Can we not have a podcast where we don't talk about
Dude.
the stupid Knights?
That's 5 in a row. This is a thing now.
Oh, gosh.
Unbelievable.
I quit.
I'm While I respect how great the LA Kings have been historically, I'm going to go with the upstarts and take the Vegas Golden Knights to get the job done here in the first round.
Wayne Gretzky ain't walking through that door.
No, he's not. He's not skating through that door either. So this leads us to pick a few more California teams. The Anaheim Mighty Ducks taking on the San Jose Sharks. Who do you guys like there?
I like the Sharks in this, and I know Adam's going to hate me for this, but I like the Sharks.
Yeah, I got to say, I almost clicked the Sharks. I have a feeling that they are going to take it, but you know me, and I have to be a homer for teams out of Anaheim, so I've got the Ducks.
It's tempting to pick the Ducks. I have always liked pulling for them, but I have become a bit of a Sharks fan over the years. So I'm gonna take San Jose there to face off against Las Vegas. All right, let's go pick the first round with the Eastern Conference. The first round will face the Tampa Bay Lightning, who we mentioned earlier in the broadcast as being a successful sports team in Tampa Bay, taking on the New Jersey Devils, traditional hockey power. Who do you guys like in this matchup?
I'm actually going with an upset here. Tampa Bay is playing really good this year, but New Jersey, you just can't bet against New Jersey. I'm going to go with the Devils in an upset.
Yeah, I've got the Lightning in it, and it's not for local reasons. It's not because they're the team closest to us. It actually, I think statistically, I think that the way they've played, I think they're going to pull it off over New Jersey.
For this, I'm going to take Tampa Bay and pick them to advance to the second round. All right, our next game to pick is our next series to pick. It would be the Boston Bruins taking on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Who do you guys pick for this one?
This is pure old school NHL, playing old school NHL. But I think the American team will win this, Boston all the way.
Mm. Yeah, I've got when it's that close, I never go against Canadians, so I've got Toronto.
For me, I'm going to go with the Bruins and expect them to play some good hockey right now. All right, hockey. We've got the Washington Capitals taking on the Columbus Blue Jackets. Who do you guys like for that matchup?
So I'm doing this out of pure just giddiness because I want this second round matchup, and you'll see in here in a second. I'm going to go with Ovechkin and the Nationals here. No, the Capitals. Wow. Well, not baseball. The Capitals.
I like Bryce Harper to win the Stanley Cup.
He's a great goalie.
He's going to win the Stanley Cup and then play for the Braves next year.
I follow hockey so closely that I was like, who's Washington playing? But anyway, I've got the Capitals.
I, too, am going to go with the Capitals there. I think they're going to play some superior hockey. Last one is the battle for Pennsylvania. You've got the Pittsburgh Penguins taking on the Philadelphia Flyers. Who would you guys pick to win the state of Pennsylvania?
Anybody who claims to be a hockey fan, if you pick against Pittsburgh and Washington's in that next round to have Ovechkin versus Sid the Kid, you're not a hockey fan. Pittsburgh takes this, so we have that second round matchup.
That couldn't have said it any better, Dave. I've got Pittsburgh for the same kind of reasons.
All right, there we go. That's the first round of the Stanley Cup. We will now jump to the second round. We'll go back over to where the Predators are playing in the Western Conference and pick from there. Guys, tell me who you've got for your two Western Conference second round matchups and who you've got winning.
So I've got Nashville playing Minnesota, and I got Nashville coming out of this one.
And for the other game, Dave?
I've got Vegas versus San Jose. I hate doing chalk, but I'm going to pick Vegas versus Nashville.
I've got Nashville versus Winnipeg. I've got the Preds moving on. And then the Golden Knights against the Ducks. And I have the Ducks moving on against all odds.
Quack, quack, quack.
For my matchups, I have the Predators taking on the Wild. I've got to pick the Predators to advance to the conference finals for the second year in a row. And then I've got the Vegas Golden Knights taking on the San Jose Sharks. And I've got the Knights. They're playing great hockey, and so I've got them in the conference finals. All right, let's pick the second round for the Eastern Conference. Guys, tell me your matchups and pick the two games.
I've got Jersey and Boston here, and you got to go Boston.
And for the other game, Dave?
Oh, I forget. Washington and Pittsburgh, and this one's a coin flip. But I think I'm going to give it to Sid the Kid. We're going to go with Pittsburgh.
Nice. I've got what Dave, your wife would call the blue teams. I've got Tampa Bay and Toronto. This is where my Homer Stripes show, and I've actually got Tampa Bay moving on there. And then I've got the Capitals beating Pittsburgh.
Okay, and then for my second round picks, I have Tampa Bay taking on Boston. I'm going to pick the Lightning to strike and advance to the conference finals. And then I've got, in the other game, I've got the Caps and the Pens. And it's that time of year where you just don't pick against the Penguins. I'm going to pick Pittsburgh to advance to the conference finals. All right, guys, go ahead and tell me your pick, your matchup, and your picks for the Western Conference Finals. Who will advance to the Stanley Cup?
So I've got Nashville versus Vegas, and I think experience is going to trump coolness. And the Preds were there last year. They'll be there again this year. Welcome back to the Stanley Cup, Nashville.
Yeah, I totally agree. I've got Nashville and the Ducks, and I got the Preds moving on to the final.
Dave, I'm with you. I've got Nashville versus Vegas. I do think experience matters. I also think being hungry matters, and I think the Preds are just hungrier, and that's why Nashville will advance to the Stanley Cup Finals. All right, guys, let's pick the Eastern Conference Finals. Tell me your matchup and who you've got moving on.
So I've got Boston versus Pittsburgh, and this is another one of those awesome NHL matchups. But I think that we're going to see a rematch of last year's Stanley Cup Final and have Pittsburgh versus Nashville.
Yeah, I've got Tampa Bay and Washington, and the hometown team moves forward. The Lightning makes it to the final.
I have Tampa Bay versus Pittsburgh, and while I think Tampa Bay's got a lot of potential, I do think it's that time where you just don't pick against the Penguins, and I've got a repeat matchup from last year, Nashville versus Pittsburgh in the Stanley Cup Finals. All right, guys, give me your Stanley Cup champion. Just give me the name and tell me why you think that's so.
Nashville's been playing out of their mind this year. Nashville went from the little team that couldn't last year to the basically the best team in the NHL this year. Nashville's going to win this, and I think it'll be about a 5-game series.
Yeah, Nashville, Tampa Bay. I think Tampa Bay's offense is going to outpace, and I see him taking it in 6.
All right, and for my pick, I've got Pittsburgh winning it all. It's as I will be pulling for Nashville as far as they go. I'll be pulling for them all the way, but I just don't think you pick against the Penguins the way that team is assembled. But you know, a hot goalie can make a big difference. But I still think at this point I'm going to pick Pittsburgh to repeat as Stanley Cup champions.
I mean, come on, anybody's fan base who mails a catfish to Toronto, how do you pick against a Nashville fan base? Come on.
That's why I'm pulling for them. I just think that Nashville is going to be close, but not close enough. It is hard to take down a team that's led by Sidney Crosby. Not saying it can't happen, just saying I don't think it will.
All right, so there's our picks for the week. You heard who's going to be the first team to 20. And you heard that I think that Nashville is going to win the NHL Stanley Cup, and I'm probably right. The other two guys are probably wrong. It just happens. Get over it. So there's our picks. Ben Foster, hit us with your sideline warning.
My sideline warning is very simple this week. It is just a quick note about college basketball, because I've always got to figure a way to work that into the show. It looks like that 4 big names from Auburn basketball will be missing next year. Wiley, Harper, Heron, and Murray will probably all not be with the team next year. And if you take you say that's okay, you can lose 4 important guys and just bring in a good recruiting class. Well, a quick search will tell you that Auburn's recruiting class has nobody in it. And that's one of the effects when you have a program that is surrounded in scandal and is led by a coach that just attracts controversy. At some point, it comes back to bite you. And that's why there's no recruits coming to Auburn in the 2018 class. And it's why an already small, undersized team is going to be even more shorthanded next year. So Auburn, there you go. You have reaped what you have sowed. And that's it. That's my sideline warning.
So you're saying their recruiting class is small?
I'm saying it's non-existent.
Their recruiting class is small.
Non-existent.
What is the size of their coach?
Yes, large.
Yay!
It's a study in contrast.
All right, Adam, hit with your sideline warning.
Oh gosh, yeah. If I was on the Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, I would say thank you, Shohei Ohtani, and write him a thank you note. The week that was, and his 3 home runs and his near perfect game were just incredible. And I think the thing that excites me about it is there have been a lot of players who've come through the major leagues and put on a show. I don't know that there's been anything quite like that I've seen, and it helps all the more that he plays for the Angels. But for me, it's like the last time I equate this to was the home run races back when it was McGuire and Sosa and all those guys, right? But we all back then had to hold our nose and kind of ignore the fact that these guys were 5 times the size they were on their rookie cards, and we knew something was going on in the background to make that excitement possible. That they had to be doing something that wasn't above board. And so I just held our nose and cheered along with it. And then we found out after the fact that we were all right. There's nothing like that with this. This is purely the joy of baseball. This is watching somebody come out and compete at the highest level, get their shot, and make the most of it. And I think that it's one of the coolest things I can say that I've seen in a long time. And I hope that this kind of story brings all the people that say baseball's boring and I'd never watch baseball. I hope this brings them along for the ride, because this is something that everybody can really celebrate, whether you're just a casual fan or whether you're really a true follower of baseball.
Yeah, I think that anybody who listens to this podcast know that we have 3 pretty big baseball fans on this show. But what Shohei Ohtani is doing is nothing short of miraculous, because in America, if a high school or college finds out that you're a good pitcher, they take you out of the field. If they find out that you're a good hitter, they take you off the mound. But what Shohei Ohtani is showing people, that you can excel in both places and still be a good pitcher or good hitter. Yep. I hope that this changes the narrative going forward. So I applaud Shohei Ohtani and the Angels. I might not like the Angels, but I actually love watching him pitch and love watching him play. Well,
and I got to say too, I'm sorry, Dave, but I got to say too, I mean, even when he was on pace for his no-hitter of his perfect game, I mean, they talked to him after the fact, and I think the quote was something like that he was conscious that he had a no-hitter going, but he wasn't thinking about a perfect game, and his words were, I figured they were going to get a hit sooner or later. And just the fact that he stepped into it and didn't get swept up in the moment, and that he played his game, knew he was probably going to have that broken and have to reset at some point. That the maturity and the poise that he brings to it just makes it all the better to watch. So,
yeah,
I'll let you start now.
Yeah, he's worth every penny that the Angels are giving him. I think that he is what's right in baseball, whereas Bryce Harper is, But anyway. So I'm going to get slightly political, not very political, but slightly with my sideline warning. We're recording our podcast on a Tuesday afternoon or Tuesday evening. This is the day where the University of Alabama got to go up and meet President Trump at the White House. Since sport has been a big thing, if you win a championship in your sport, you get to go to the White House, no matter who the president is, no matter what is going on in the political climate. That has been an honor, and it should be an honor to go to meet the leader of the free world. I don't care if you're a Democrat, Republican, whatever, communist. I might care if you're a communist, but I don't care what your political leaning is. You still get to go to the White House, which is a very historic building. But with the Colin Kaepernicks, with the way that some of the sporting people are leaning, it has become a good way to protest our president. I applaud Nick Saban for his stance this afternoon. He said, I don't care if – I'm paraphrasing. He said, I don't care if you're a Democrat, Republican, or whatever. We're going to the White House. This is a team exercise. It is an honor to go to meet the leader of the free world. Get on board or get off my team. I wish that general managers and coaches and adults who are playing professional sports would realize that you're doing more harm to yourself than good by protesting to not go see the president. The office deserves respect. I don't care if you agree with him or disagree with him. The office itself deserves respect. So you just to go to shake the man's hand because he has taken time out of his day to meet with your team. It deserves a little respect. So I applaud Nick Saban for making that stand. And I'm sorry for getting political, guys. That's not something I like to do, but I did want to applaud Nick Saban for his stand. So that's my sideline warning. So you've heard the sideline warnings. You've heard our phone number. Adam, what's that phone number again to call for the Blitz?
It's 931-44-BLITZ.
931-44-BLITZ. Hopefully we have some phone calls next week. We can have our segment called The Blitz. Get in there. Tell me that you think pro wrestling's a sport. Tell me you think that pro wrestling's not a sport. Tell me you think that Ben is stupid for his takes. And we'll go from there. Follow us on Twitter at SW The Show for the actual show. Follow myself, DAdams419. Ben is the Ben Foster. Adam is Run Tide Run. You can email the show at sidelinewarningpodcast@gmail.com. Join the Facebook group, Sideline Warning Fan Group. Get in there. Say you want to join. I'll accept you. You can like the show on iTunes. Subscribe to the show on iTunes. Give us a comment. Give us a 5-star rating. And please, please, please join us in the next couple days on the I Am Geek Show, where we have our crossover episode. And then next episode you hear from Sideline Warning, we're going to have 6 guys on here talking about Disney, and maybe we'll force them to talk a little sports. But guys, we love you. We'll see you guys in the next episode here on Sideline Warning. Roll Tide. Yeah.
It's exciting, isn't it?
All right. Well, tell them good night. So we can do.
Good night.
All right. Oh, well, it's stuck in your hair. I got it.
Somebody
The headphones get stuck in her hair.